Hi, everybody. This is Megan.
And this is Steven.
And this is the Synchrony podcast, where we talk about transforming apostolic dating culture and ending loneliness in the church.
That's right.
And it is too late for us to be recording this.
Very late. And we have to wake up really early.
Yeah, because what are we doing tomorrow?
We are flying to Texas.
Flying to Texas. We are headed to Lufkin for the Texas District Singles Conference.
That's right.
By the time you're listening to this, we would have already gone and come back. So you're not hearing this for the first time. I'm sure it was great.
But if you see us Thursday, just know we're tired.
When you hear this later, it will explain some of our behavior and or any awkward things that we say out loud.
That's right.
Because we have to get up at like really early tomorrow and drive.
We will not get back on this discussion again. We are in disagreement about how early to get to the airport.
Okay, so Steven and I have differing philosophies when it comes to how time works.
No, I'm in perfect agreement on how time works.
Steven is a pragmatist.
You are a worrywart.
I'm a pessimist. Yes. I assume that the worst will happen, that there will be a delay or a deer will run in front of us or an alligator family will be crossing the road and we'll have to slow down. I want to plan for the worst case scenario, not the probable scenario. And the worst case scenario in my mind is that we have a significant delay or, TSA decides that they have to do intensive screening on you because you look suspicious. And we get stuck for hours in the airport. And I want to give us time to make sure we have everything we need.
If we're going to Atlanta, if we're going to Miami, sure. We are going to Jacksonville.
Jacksonville is an international airport.
I get it.
It is a busy airport.
Our flight leaves at 8 a.m. and we are not checking bags.
Here's the real question for you. Do you want to drive from here to Jacksonville and spend time in the airport with an angry, anxious wife or with a slightly less anxious, happy wife?
Either way, I'm still going with the same wife.
It's true. Anyway, at some point tomorrow, early, we will get up and drive to Jacksonville and then fly to Texas. So we're excited about that.
And all I'm saying is getting there an hour and a half early is plenty of time.
Comment below if
she wants to get there 2.5 hours early.
No, 2 hours, not
2.5 hours early is what you said.
Comment below if you feel like you should give yourself plenty of time in the airport to make sure that everything goes smoothly.
If it were any other time during the day, sure, 2.5 hours.
Okay, let's have this argument off the podcast so that we can...
For all you longtime listeners, this is our next Shamu argument. We have mentioned it on the podcast before.
I don't think we should bring Shamu into this. He's been through enough. Let's shift gears.
It's probably a good thing.
We're also, as you can tell, we're not drinking coffee tonight. Normally we have our cups of Cafe 117. We didn't make coffee because it is, and I say this as a person who regularly drinks coffee closer to midnight than I should, but it's much too late for us to be.
It's 11:35 p.m.
We should not be drinking coffee because we won't be able to fall asleep and we need to get a few hours in. So we're going to skip our coffee. Go check out Cafe 117 if you haven't heard about them. You can get a discount at the link in our description below. They're fantastic.
Yes, they are.
But we're going to try to fly through this episode, not because it doesn't deserve a good amount of time. There's a lot to talk about, but I think we're kind of going to give the highlights, and also we need to be conscious of time tonight.
Yep.
Cool. So this is kind of a big reveal because we've been talking about our From Singles to Shepherds survey for a couple of months now. And if you haven't heard about this, what we did was, hopefully some of the people that are watching this episode are ministers or pastors that have never heard of Synchrony before.
Yep.
And this is the first time that you're meeting us. And if so, hi, so happy that you're here. Thank you.
Sorry you had to listen to that intro.
I'm so sorry. I promise we really like each other. Thank you for being here. We're Megan and Steven. We're here because we care about singles. We care about loneliness in the church, and we think that it is slowly siphoning off the energy and the faith of some of the most dedicated people in our congregations.
Yep.
And we want to provide people with tools to help them end their loneliness and build the life that they feel called to build. with a values-driven partner.
Yep.
And you can go back and listen to a lot of episodes about that. What we're doing tonight is we're going to break down the data that we gathered from that survey process. And at the time of this recording, we had about 537, I think, survey responses that were included in our initial analysis.
Yeah.
Which is a nice sample size.
Oh, it's a fantastic sample size.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we wanted over 1,000, but the thing is it was starting to slow down on the responses, which is fine. But 500 is still a good sample size.
Definitely significant. And, you know, I didn't collect a lot of personally identifying data in this because I really wanted the bar to be low. I wanted people to be able to respond to this quickly. So I didn't even capture data about gender, which is funny. Looking back, I probably should have put a question in there about like respondent's gender. But it focused entirely, the questions really focused on every single person's experience with loneliness.
I don't think gender really matters.
I don't think it matters with experience.
This survey in particular.
Right. It was more important for me to give people a chance to very quickly drop their ideas about how loneliness has impacted them and their experiences with it. So it's been really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull up the summary that we put together. What we did with this data was we gathered as many survey responses as we could, and then we packaged it into like a very brief kind of lightweight infographic.
Yeah.
Which I should be able to link. I'll be able to link the landing page where you can get that below. You're going to notice that it says pastors on the landing page. You don't have to be a pastor to download this. But you could grab the link from the description and go check it out while we're talking about it and, read along with us if you'd like. And we would love this. If you're listening and you're not a minister or a pastor or in church leadership, or if you are and you just want to send this to your friends, we'd love for this link to get into the hands of other pastors who might not have been included in our mailing list.
Yeah. And if you are a pastor in the ALJC, UPCI, WPF, like yada, 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 and you have not received this in your email, it's because we haven't made our way all the way through the contact list yet.
I mean, or we just don't have your email.
Or we don't have it.
The way that we worked this is we actually hired a research assistant for, sort of temporarily to go through all of the contact pages they could find from churches affiliated with those organizations.
Yep.
So unfortunately, there's no independent churches included in this because we couldn't find them, and know that we were hitting the right audience. And we didn't have anyone from the PAW, the Apostolic Assemblies, or, other adjacent organizations. Yet.
And just so you know, we have already sent this to over 1,100 contacts.
Yeah, it ended up going to 1,100
About
contacts.
1,100 contacts right now, and those are all individual churches.
Yeah. So what we did was we basically just had them go look on what was publicly available on church websites. If they could find leadership contacts, we included those. We would love for many, many other leaders and pastors to get a hold of this data. So you can go check out that link to download it yourself, and it downloads as a PDF, and you can send them the PDF directly, or you can send them to the landing page link so they can download it for themselves.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to get that pulled up really quick.
All right. So we're going to start off with giving some of the data that we have received from the survey, and then you can tell everyone how we got that data.
Cool.
The first one is 2 out of every 5 singles experience extreme loneliness frequently or daily. 1 in 5 report feeling physical pain due to their loneliness.
Yeah. So, like in talking to singles in consultations, like I hear from people fairly frequently that like they experience loneliness in a really intense way, right? Yeah. And if you're listening to this and you're like, well, that sounds real crazy and woo-woo, you have to remember that our bodies and our minds are connected, right?
Absolutely.
And your emotional state can directly impact how your body feels. I went through a whole phase when I was suffering with some postpartum like anxiety, where I would just, I had to throw up constantly. It was really gross. And I thought I had like an intestinal parasite and had to go see a specialist. And she's like, no, this is called, cyclical vomiting, and it has to do with stress and sleep deprivation. And I was like,
Yeah, that was a serious thing, man.
why would your body, if you can't sleep, decide to make you puke?
Yeah, it almost resembled food poisoning.
Yeah, it was terrible.
It was crazy.
So our bodies respond to emotional stimuli and mental stimuli in different ways. And for some people, the way that manifests, the loneliness manifests, it's not just in feeling lonely or feeling down. It manifests in actual physical pain. So, 1 in 5 people experiencing physical discomfort as a result of their loneliness.
Yeah.
Is pretty profound.
20%.
Yeah, like for any of these stats, imagine for a minute a church, right, where you have 10 single people, right? A smaller church congregation, that's probably a reasonable number of singles across various ages, right? From people who haven't ever been married to people who are maybe, have been married before and have been widowed or but gone through a divorce. 10 singles across the board, right?
Yeah.
And imagine that of that group, 4 of them are feeling extreme loneliness frequently.
Yeah.
They're suffering from this on a regular basis. And the way that we asked about this is we gave people the chance to say, like, I experience extreme loneliness, like never, sometimes, frequently, often, daily.
Yeah.
And what this captures is all the people that responded that they experience it frequently, often, and daily. Like it's something that is with them, almost constantly, right? Of that group of people, again, on our group of 10 singles, 2 of those people aren't just feeling that loneliness mentally and emotionally on a frequent basis.
Yeah.
When it happens, it's actually manifesting as physical pain. And the way people have described it to me is like an ache, right? Or like a rawness in their body.
Yeah.
The feeling of, if you've ever had something that like chafes you, or if you've had to wear
or like a healing burn.
Yeah, or if you've had to wear like shoes that have caused your feet to be in pain, but you can't take them off. You have to keep wearing them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I know that all too well.
Right. That feeling of like inescapable grinding pain. And the way people describe it is that it's this low level ache that they experience frequently in their day-to-day lives. And there's no medication you can take to just snap out of that.
Yeah.
Or ease it. So yeah, loneliness does not just live in our brains. It shows up in our bodies. And we know there's good data right now about the actual physical effects of loneliness on your long-term health. And they found links to loneliness with other comorbidities and things like heart disease and other kinds of what we would think of as being very physical disorders, right? So loneliness is significant not just because it feels bad to be lonely, but because feeling lonely hurts you in other ways.
This one was really impactful to me personally.
Yeah.
73% of apostolic singles have considered beginning a dating relationship with someone outside the church at least one time.
Yeah.
73%.
Yeah. Like almost 2/3.
As a result of their loneliness.
Right. Because, and we talked about this before,
You said almost 2/3?
73% versus 75%. Oh, that'd be 3/4.
Yes.
Sorry.
Almost 3/4.
Whew. Should not do this without coffee late at night.
Wait a second.
Yeah, just go look at the infographic. The graph helps. Makes more sense. No, so we've talked about this before, but like, if you're listening to this and you're a married person, this might seem really weird to you. Like, why? We preach so much about not being unequally yoked and whatever. But imagine that you're a person who you're in maybe like your 40s or your 50s even, and you have never had a significant dating relationship in the church.
Yeah.
there has never been anyone available to you. This is a very common experience. There's never been anyone available to you who was, spiritually grounded the way you were, who wanted the same things out of life. No one in your local congregation who was even the same age, maybe. And somebody at work who is kind and who seems to be of good character is pursuing you.
Yeah.
And not in a creepy way, but in like in all the ways that we've been trained to hope for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're demonstrating that they are interested in you. They maybe asked you out on some dates and you're having to say no.
Yeah.
This is an extremely common experience, particularly for apostolic women who are single later than they expected to be. But I think guys probably experience this too.
Oh, sure.
I just haven't heard from them about this as much. But the temptation to go out and start a relationship with that person would be really hard to resist.
Yeah. There's a group of people that, since we've started Synchrony, I have grown more sympathy for. Not that I didn't have sympathy before, but it's more about knowledge.
Yeah.
People who have found the truth later in life.
Yeah.
Who either have come from a divorce or have just been single up until that point.
Yeah.
They recognize the importance of not being unequally yoked.
Mm-hmm.
They're investing in their spiritual life and also understanding and recognizing that there's not a lot of options for them to date or get married to.
Yeah.
Like how daunting that might be.
And how, we don't
why that would make you question your faith.
And we don't preach things like singleness or celibacy as a sacrifice that we expect people to make when they come into the kingdom.
Yeah.
But that's the choice that some people are having to make.
Yeah, if there's not a lot of options in their area.
Yeah, and it can feel like they're just laying that on the altar to slaughter.
This one surprised me as well because of how almost unanimous it was.
Yeah.
Mind you, this is over 500 people.
Yes,
saying
537.
This. Yeah. 98% of singles feel that they have insufficient dating options.
Yeah. So the way this was framed in the survey, if you took the survey, this is what you would have seen. I gave people a scale and I said, I asked them to choose the level that best described their experience. So the statement was, I feel that I have plenty of dating options available to me. Right. And, I gave them a scale of like completely disagree, somewhat disagree, neutral, somewhat agree, strongly agree, right? Only 2% of people landed in the agree and strongly agree category.
Yeah.
2%. So everyone else feels that there are not sufficient dating options.
Yeah.
Right? And that there's a challenge.
I want to put that into perspective.
Yeah.
2% of, let's just do flat 500, is 10 people.
Right.
10 out of 500.
And I didn't go do any really intense data mining to see like what was it about those 10 that
Sure.
But I'm curious, like I want to go do a follow-up just to see, because if they might be in a certain age group or they might be in a certain place where they feel like they've got more. We did gather data about the size of congregation that people were in.
Yeah.
So I would like to go do a little bit more splicing and dicing to see like, do the people that are in this, like, do these unicorns who feel like they have enough options, are they in a specific type of church or, what's their thing? But yeah.
Or they might be younger where there's more single people in their age group.
Yeah. And the thing about it is like, I know that the stat is striking, but I'm not surprised at all.
No, I'm not.
And some of it, like,
I'm not from the perspective of Synchrony's perspective and what we've seen and who we've talked to.
Sure.
It's not surprising.
Well, and also like, grain of salt here, there's some confirmation bias here, because the people who are responding to the survey, who are willing to take the time and respond to the survey, are single people. A lot of them, I think, got a hold of our survey through our social media or Facebook groups
or other single groups,
that are catering to singles who are actively looking and probably struggling to find people.
So that makes sense.
So I mean, take it with a grain of salt, but I think that the significance of it stands. Like the majority of apostolic singles do not feel that they have enough options available to them.
All right. So to follow up that stat,
Yeah.
70% of people that we surveyed
Mm.
feel that the churches they attend lack resources for their loneliness.
Yeah. And the way this was another one of those questions on a scale of like strongly agree or strongly disagree to strongly agree. Right.
Yeah.
And I think the question was something like, I feel that my church has resources to help me with my loneliness.
Yeah.
Right. Most people do not feel that their church does or doesn't have significant resources. And that doesn't mean that they feel like their church isn't trying.
Yeah.
But, we had a free text portion of this where people could go and just leave their thoughts.
Yeah, like a optional fill in the blank.
Yeah, and we got I want to say close to 300 written responses on that.
Which is insane.
Yeah, because not everyone likes to write. And some people wrote me a book in that, which I am so appreciative for. But some of the things that were coming up in that, which, again, not surprising if you've been around singles, ministry a lot, was just that singles ministries and singles groups are great, but they by themselves alone are not able to address loneliness.
Yeah.
There's just so many other facets of church life and work where the loneliness is brought to the forefront.
Yeah.
And at a high level, unless you are a single person who is serving in the singles ministry and has that firsthand view of what it's like, you might not really understand what the experience is like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think most singles feel like their church is not able to provide them with anything that's going to directly help the loneliness besides just prayer and community at a high level.
All right. So I think this is a stat that us lifelong churchgoers can really connect with.
Mm.
And I mean connect because we all know people who have been in this situation is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And we kind of have said, oh, it's such a shame. But I don't think we realize how staggering of an impact this is having to the church, considering how hard it is to get someone into the church. 39% of apostolic singles have considered stopping their church attendance due to loneliness.
Yeah.
Basically 40%.
Right. Yeah. So again, imagine that group of 10 singles. Four of them have at some point teetered on the cusp of, I'm not even coming to church today.
Yeah.
I just can't. And again, I think we talked about this before, but we've got some survivorship bias happening here where the people that we're talking to here are the apostolic singles who have chosen to stay despite the fact that they feel that way.
Yeah.
Right. We don't have data on...
Yeah, we're not hearing the voices of the people who...
Right. The hundreds of people that, thousands of people, I don't know how many, who have been driven out of church in part due to loneliness. And I know, if you're listening to this and you're, ruffled by the idea that a dating issue, right, or a lack of a dating partner would be the thing to drive someone away, I don't want to simplify it too much and say that that's the only reason why somebody would fall.
There's a lot more that's involved in that. Their carnality.
Yeah.
It's a domino effect.
It's a domino effect, but what people don't understand is going back to that sort of sensation of constant ache, right? Again, imagine, you're coming to church, you're trying to serve, you're constantly feeling as though you are, dealing with this burden, this pain of loneliness. Your church might not have resources to address loneliness. We know the majority of singles feel that their churches don't.
You might not personally have resources to go to the nearest conference or the time to take off work, or, there's a whole facet of things that have to fall into place for you to be able to go outside of your normal comfort zone.
Right.
Because of how expensive things are.
Right. And so it's not just that people are feeling like they, I can't find a dating partner, so I'm not coming to church. It's they're feeling like they've had to put their lives on hold. Some of them, a lot of this came in the free text form as well, feel that they're being sidestepped for ministry positions because they're not married and they're not operating as a couple. So they might feel that they're kind of on the shelf in their ministry. They might be grieving the ability to have a family that they thought they were going to have.
I was going to say the biological clock probably really plays a role in that.
That's a whole thing too. And again, there could be temptations from outside of the church where, man, if I could just get over this church thing, I could go date X, Y, and Z person at work and at least for a while be happy.
Yeah.
And have hope,
And obviously that doesn't justify leaving the church.
No, but the temptation is there, and as someone's resolve is slowly worn down over time, it makes it much easier if they do go through a hard season or if they experience some offense.
Yeah, if they're in the wilderness.
Right. And they become fragile in a way where it's much easier to break those connections to the church. And it just adds a layer of fragility, right? Like it's like, when someone suffered an injury, right, and they're hospitalized because of it, the worst thing that could happen to them is to get an infection of some kind, right? Like while they're under care. It's not always the injury itself that is the thing that takes them out. It's the complicating factors that add to it.
Yeah.
And loneliness is one of those things where it can sneak into a weakened body, a weakened, sort of armor, right? Yeah. And find that little nook that can really hurt somebody in a long-term way. So yeah, it's not just that people are struggling and it feels bad. I want leaders to understand that there are souls at risk because we're not addressing loneliness. It's not that there are souls at risk because they're not married.
Yeah.
There are souls at risk because the loneliness that comes from feeling like you don't have hope of creating the life you feel called to can slowly wear away at your faith.
Yeah.
And it's happened. I mean, it's happened. We can I can conjure up a dozen people.
Yeah. I want to read one of these those text comments.
Yeah, quotes.
One of the quotes. And I'm sorry, I have a bee analogy that goes along really well with it. And I'll explain it to where everyone can understand.
Once again, if you're meeting us for the first time, my husband, Stephen, is a professional beekeeper. As our community knows from that one time we talked bees, we'll find amazing opportunities to info dump a lot about bees, but it's always worthwhile.
But it goes along really well with what you just said.
Okay.
So one of them says, I feel that I have to sacrifice more and work more for the kingdom because it is perceived that I have more time and resources because I don't need to care for a family. This is one of those moments where, as that single person is working for the kingdom, they are doing it with the right heart to begin with. But as the loneliness builds up and the time goes by and their sacrifice feels like it is unevenly weighted, that's where I feel like it could possibly start attacking the immune system of their spirit, if you want to call it like that.
Yeah.
So here's where the bee analogy comes in. The honeybee has a pest that is one of the leading causes of colonies struggling to survive these days. It's a varroa. And it is a mite that latches itself on to the bee. And what it does is it is a vector for diseases, but it also drains their resources out of their body. So it takes from them and it gives them issues.
Like a vampire.
Yeah, sure. So, and I hate to compare it. It actually is a lot in a similar way to how AIDS works in a human body. how it destroys your white blood cells,
Mm.
and then it's like the common cold, what kills you, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with bees. Bees can survive with mites on them for a while.
Yeah.
And what ends up killing the bee is things that normal healthy bees can totally tolerate perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And so they'll end up dying from things that are very common.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is, and how that relates is, singles have, if they have a good prayer life and they're walking strong, everything's great.
Yeah.
But as these things pile up and as loneliness builds on them, that is what slowly could be one of many parts of a thing, that's the straw that breaks the camel's back, that could have an opportunity arise where someone who is amazing outside of the church, who might even have a lot of Christian values, just not apostolic doctrine, show up and say, hey, I want to love you. And it's hard not to tempt that, right? It's hard not to be tempted by that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that covers every scenario, but it's just what was going through my mind when we were talking about this.
Yeah. I think the immune system analogy is a good one, right? It weakens your defenses. And things that normally would not be able to, get through your armor or get through your immune system can strike.
Yeah.
In a really significant way.
Yeah. So we are almost done, but I feel like there's one last thing we need to address.
Yeah.
In every group of 5 apostolic singles, one person feels that their pastor does not truly understand or support them in their singleness.
Yeah, and I could reframe this as like their church doesn't, but I asked specifically about their connection to their pastor.
Yeah.
Because we know that pastors are in many ways the glue that,
oh, sure,
it keeps the congregation focused. He's setting the vision and direction, and he's what helps or she helps connect people to the mission of the church, in a lot of ways.
I want to caveat before we continue on with this.
Yeah.
We fully understand and are in submission to the role of the pastor, and we are not trying to bash any particular pastor in any way.
No.
But we do understand that pastors are also human.
And they have, we've mentioned this before, pastors have an insanely demanding job.
Absolutely.
Many of them are pastoring alongside regular day jobs.
Yeah.
And they are having to put out fires constantly. Someone over here is getting ready to pass away. Someone over here is getting married. Someone over here is struggling with their faith. Someone over here needs a Bible study.
So there's a lot of things going on.
Yeah. And it's too much to ask that pastors be aware of every single issue that everyone is going through. So
absolutely,
we want to, our expectations for this are realistic, but we want to highlight the significance of that pastoral connection. And the stat that, there's 1 out of every 5 singles who really don't feel like their pastor gets it.
Yeah.
Right. And so again, if you've got that group of 10 singles, imagine 2 of them who just really feel like the man behind the pulpit that they're submitted to, that they're trying to follow after and apply his teaching or her teachings to their life. Like, they just feel like they don't understand where I am. They don't see where I am. They don't understand how bad it is. They don't know what I'm going through.
Yeah.
And that's a really difficult position for a pastor to be in, because when he comes to that saint and tries to counsel or give advice, like, again, we should be submitted regardless of this. But again, with that like weakened immune system, that weakened defense, it's natural maybe for that person to say, like, how can you tell me this? You don't know what I'm going through.
Yeah.
You don't know what I'm experiencing. And they might not say that out loud to their leader, but they might be feeling that. And that might be part of their internal confusion, and another thing that's just helping to kind of chip away at their defenses over time.
Yeah. This is a prime example of, going back to the bees. With Varroa, what happens is you don't realize how bad the infestation is until it's too late, unless you are monitoring for it.
Mm.
So as a beekeeper, your hive will be totally fine, productive, bringing in honey, making plenty of eggs. But if you are not being active and proactive in checking for those mites and taking care of them, it will destroy your colony.
Yeah, it'll overwhelm it.
So in this situation, single people who go a long time of prolonged singleness appear to be healthy.
Yeah.
Appear to be the person who is always reliable, always able to be counted on, and they've been there forever because they're their work. There's a lot of times they're the backbone of a lot of really well-oiled machine churches, right?
Yeah.
So it goes so long until it doesn't work anymore, or they feel like they haven't been seen long enough. And so again, I'm not trying to paint this terrible picture for them, but I'm also trying to shine a light on the idea that there are some people who just need more support.
And I think it's a great encouragement for pastors to know that, like, you know, I think singles would welcome involvement from their pastor in conversations about their loneliness.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think a pastor hearing this would say, well, I don't care.
Oh, absolutely not.
I don't think a saint would say, like, well, I just don't want my pastor to know at all what I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
But someone has to start that conversation.
Yeah.
And again, if you're a saint who there's nothing else really critically wrong in your life, it might feel kind of weird to approach your pastor and be like, hey, I'm suffering with tremendous loneliness that physically hurts in my body.
Yeah.
Right.
And it might appear that your problem is not as big as everyone else's problem around you.
Yeah, that's honestly, I think, a tool of the enemy that he'll use to try to make us feel isolated and alone. So I want to encourage pastors, if you're listening to this doesn't have to be any big grandiose effort, but taking a few minutes to sit with your single saints and say, hey, you know, especially around the holidays or around Valentine's Day or around big significant church moments that focus on family. You know, a family and friends day.
Yeah.
A family and friends day sounds great. Unless you're a person who doesn't really have family in the church.
Or friends. I'm just kidding.
Hopefully we're still forming healthy friendships in the church.
I'm just kidding.
But I mean, pastors, like, if you hear this, it's a great opportunity to say, like, if there's a single person in your congregation who you feel like you haven't had one-on-one interaction with lately, it's awesome to prioritize that, especially around those times, and asking questions like, hey, I know this is a hard time of year, you know, when everyone's around their families. How are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, don't be afraid to kind of open up that conversation and talk directly to the loneliness. Because I think if singles feel that their pastor understands and has heard them, they're much more resilient.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know. So we gathered a lot of other data, and
there's a lot more in the survey.
Right. And I'm sure we're going to be kind of pulling from that as we go to help inform other topics that we discuss and maybe other resources that we put together. Thank you to everyone who responded to the survey, everyone who shared it.
Yeah. And which, by the way, if you still want to input your information into the survey anonymously, it's still open for people to add to. We would love for people to still have a voice after this, right? And to continue building out this survey and seeing the responses over time.
Yeah.
I would love for us to be able to get 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 responses eventually.
Yeah.
I know that sounds kind of grandiose, but I mean, we're a big movement. Why can't we have that kind of information?
Yeah, I think the more data, the better.
Again, sample size is helps be more precise.
Yeah. So I would love to see some additional responses as well. But, I want to just kind of thank anyone who's been participating in this so far.
Yeah, thank you.
If you're a leader and you're listening to this, please feel free to grab that infographic at the link in our description. You go and you download the PDF. It is safe. It's not going to download a virus onto your computer. Yeah. And we want that to be something that churches take and talk about and implement. And we're not saying that there's a silver bullet. Synchrony is not going to solve every
No.
every church's single ministry challenges, right? But we are here as a resource, and if there's any way that we can help, either with speaking to your saints, with coordinating, their involvement in Synchrony, with just getting them looped into some of the conversations we're having here, that we're having here, we want to do that. So take a look. Let us know if there's anything we can do. You can reach us at questions@synchronyproject.com.
Yep. Feel free to ask us questions. If you have concerns about the survey, we want to hear your opinion.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you want to talk further about it, let us know.
Yep. Okay, we have to go finish packing because we still haven't finished packing.
Yeah. We are excited to see everyone at Lufkin.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get a lot of FaceTime with people that I've only ever seen over a screen.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
And we are excited, and thank you for listening to the episode.
Hey.
Hey.
I love you.
I love you too.
Even though you don't believe in taking enough time before a flight to get to the airport.
I'm choosing not to respond to that.
Wise.
We will continue this conversation off camera.
All right, guys. We'll see you later.
Good night.
Bye.